this is the tail piece, and I've just continued on from the end of round 15, working the next 10 stitches here, and then chain stitches, and then turning back in the other direction along those stitches, and then there's a couple of slip stitches at the end here, and another 2 rows of DC to make the tail. So when you've finished with that, you can use the end to curl this over and then sew the chain to the last row at that end, and then the inside of the tail to the inside of the body there. For the back paws, I'm working in a different colour so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to rejoin in the next unworked stitch of the round after the join of the tail here. So I'm going to work a slip stitch in the next unworked stitch, which is this one, and then my next DC will be in this stitch here. That's the first back paw finished, and I've just worked backwards and forwards in rows on these few stitches here. Now next I'm going to slip stitch in the same stitch as this end stitch here, and in the next 3 unworked stitches along the front. Now I'm in position to work the second back paw on the next few stitches, turning back and forth in rows as before. That's the second back paw finished, and you can use the ending tail and the starting tail just to sew the paws and curl them over there and sew them down on the inside. To begin the extra rows at the back, I'm going to join with a slip stitch in the same stitch as the one worked at the end of row 1 of the second paw, just here, and then I'll be able to continue working in DC in the front loops only around the rest of the round. From the start of the extra rows at the back at the beginning of the second paw here, I've gone to the end of the tail, and then I've slip stitched in the same stitch at the end of the tail. And now I'm going to work in these remaining front loops here on the inside of the tail. So I'm going to work along to the end of the tail join here, and then slip stitch in that stitch at the end. I'll finish that row of DC underneath the tail and slip stitched in the last stitch at the join, and I'm going to turn and work back along all of these stitches to this point here. And here's the extra rows at the back finished. This is where I'm going to rejoin for the front leg piece. So I've got 6 stitches along the bottom and 6 stitches along the top, and then I'm going to work an extra stitch in each side to make a total of 14. So I'm going to rejoin in here and work in the front loops only. So there's my 14 stitches of the first round of the front leg, and I can continue working on those. This is the finished front leg piece, and I'm going to reinforce that with another pipe cleaner. So I've taken the pipe cleaner, I've folded it in half, and I've bended back the 2 ends of the pipe cleaner so that the doubled section is about the length of the front leg plus the neck. So I'm going to push that down through the neck to the bottom of the paws. And then the next thing I need to do is sew over the end at the paws to cover the pipe cleaner. I've sewed over the end at the bottom. Now I'm going to bring the yarn up in the centre so that I can make some straight stitches for an indent for the paws in the middle. So for this I just need to make several tight straight stitches in the same place. Give it a good tug. And that helps to define the paws. Now what I'm going to do is sew up the centre front to make another indent for the gap between the 2 front legs. So I'm going to do that using back stitches. And the first few stitches I'm going to sew through just the front leg portion only. you've got a couple of rounds to go on the front leg piece, you can then hold the body and the front leg together to sew through both layers, and that will hold the front leg in the right position. You don't really want to go any further up than round 2 of the front leg piece, otherwise the legs will look too long. Just one more stitch if I can get it through. And that can be fastened off on the inside. For the filling, I've cut 10 centimetres at the toe end of a pair of tights, and I've put some polypropylene granules inside because they make a good weight. And twist this off at the top, and I'll just check that it's about the right size to fit in the body. That seems fine. So now I can secure this by sewing it. And once I've sewn it, I'll wrap the excess back over the ball. Just cheating and doing it quickly. So then that'll sit inside the body. And then the base piece fits on the bottom, and I'll be sewing that to these extra rows at the back around the edge here, and then just inside the 2 back paws so that the back paws still stick out.